We're going to talk a little bit today about golden eagles, and Anne's going to join us with a live golden eagle here in a few minutes. And I'm going to turn it over to Anne real quick. And Anne, can you tell us a little bit about the Raptor Education Foundation and everything you guys do?
Yeah, Mark, thanks so much for having us. Welcome to everybody, hopefully staying toasty at home. We are celebrating our 40th year. We are the oldest environmental nonprofit here in the state of Colorado that works only with live raptors. So that's eagles, hawks, falcons, owls, vultures, condors, kites, and osprey. We don't do any rehabilitation here. We only do education work, but all of our birds pretty much have come through the rehab process. They were once wild birds that became injured. We're out here in Brighton, Colorado, and we're trying to take our programming online and working with our great partners at the Highlands Ranch Community Association Backcountry Wilderness Group, because they've got a fantastic golden eagle nest there that Mark's going to tell you about.
Okay, thanks, Anne. While Anne goes and gets the golden eagle, I'm going to take her off here real quick. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the golden eagle nest that we have in the backcountry, and how long it's been there and everything, and how Anne is also tied to this nest. So Anne has been involved with this nest since 5 or 6 years ago. She's consulted on the nest whenever we've had questions regarding our compliance with federal laws and things like that. We also actually banded one of the baby eagles with Anne and a raptor biologist who is federally approved to band the eagle, and I got some pictures to share with you on that as well. But some quick history on the backcountry and this particular nest. So as you may or may not know, this nest in the backcountry wilderness area of Highlands Ranch has been in existence since 2011. And since 2011, it's produced 8 fledglings. A fledgling eagle is when a chick is born and ends up flying from the nest and hopefully surviving into adulthood. Why is that a big deal? Golden eagles are rare, especially in urban areas. To have a nest in an urban area is particularly rare. So the backcountry is 13 square miles of conservation area. And that's a huge part of why this nest has been successful over the past 10 years. This would be the 10th year of the nest. It has a 13 square mile solid functioning ecosystem to hunt in. And it happens to be, right over our trail system and the Wildcat Mountain Trail system. And so there are trail closures in place and things like that. But as you can see on this screen, this is a map of the backcountry wilderness area and all 13 square miles. We do have 25 miles of natural surface trails in the northern part of the backcountry, closer to all the homes in Highlands Ranch. For reference, this is Monarch Boulevard and Rock Canyon High School. These are the homes in Highlands Ranch, and this would be Santa Fe over here on the west side, all the way down to basically Sedalia. So while we have 25 miles of natural surface trails, we also host about 1,000 kids per summer in our environmental education camp backcountry. We have archery and 3D archery ranges and horseback rides over in this area. So while we have areas for recreation and education, much of the backcountry is protected for true conservation, where human disturbance is definitely minimized. Hold on one second. Okay, there was a little bit of a delay there. So when we have trail closures in place, the red Wildcat Mountain Trail is closed along with the Douglas County Trail right below the nest. The nest location is here on Wildcat Mountain on this west facing side. And then the history goes all the way back to 1936. Let me bring up a window here. There was actually biologists in 1936 documented eagles on the east side of Wildcat Mountain. So when we designed these trails in 2006 and opened them, we knew that the possibility of eagles nesting was real, and so we planned for these seasonal closures if the eagles eventually returned, and they ended up returning in 2011. go through some pictures here real quick of the eagle nest. So here's the nest below the eagle. This was mother eagle a couple of years ago returning to the nest. And then in 2014, we were able to actually band one of the baby chicks from the nest. This has to be done at a very particular time in the development of the chick before it's mobile and aware of what's going on around it. So it's when it's 25 days old. So this is Anne here in the white shirt, and she was lowered over the cliffs there down to the nest. We teamed up with Douglas County Search and Rescue to do that safely. So the first step was flushing mom from the nest momentarily. So that's mom flying from the nest. And then we lowered Anne down to the nest. And you know, we learned a lot from just looking in the nest. A lot of rabbit parts, not a lot of prairie dog parts, even though there's a prairie dog colony right below it. So they definitely prefer rabbits. Is something we learned from looking closely at the nest there. So Anne put the baby chick in a sack, and we hoisted the sack up to Tony there. And then Tony was the federally approved biologist raptor that was allowed to ban the raptor. So there's a 25-day-old baby eagle chick. So at 25 days old, this was a fake egg, but that's the size of an eagle egg when it's laid. And by 25 days old, this eagle is already that big. That's always the surprising thing to me, is how fast these birds grow in their first few months. So securing the band to the leg. What this band is, it's called a mortality band. If this eagle has ever died or killed anywhere, that band would hopefully be turned in, and there's record of where it was banded and what year and all that good stuff. So this time Anne is ready with the eagle, so I'm going to turn it back over to Anne here in a second, and she'll talk all about her eagle. All right, there is Anne. Go ahead, Anne.
Thank you. There we go. Hi, Mark. It was great seeing those photos again. It was such a great day back in 2014.
And what you're holding there?
All righty. So this is our now 20-year-old male golden eagle. We have had him since he was 3.5 years old. What happened to him is in February of 2003, up in the Livingston, Montana area, he was feeding on a dead white-tailed deer on the side of the road, or maybe right in the middle of Interstate 90. We're not sure. And he was hit by a car. The guy reported that he just could not slow down in time. And the great thing is the guy lived in Idaho. He was driving west, but to get through to Idaho, he had to go by Bozeman. And there's a wonderful raptor center in Bozeman, the Montana Raptor Conservation Center. They have sent us a few birds. And so the guy called 911 because he was so upset. And the dispatcher said, if you think you can catch an eagle, get off at Bozeman. And sure enough, that's what he did. So he grabbed him, put him in his truck, and this eagle got excellent care within probably 6 hours of being injured. But what happened was the head of his humerus, so it's the upper arm bone. You got to remember that birds have the same bones in their wings as you and I have in our arms. And the head of that got dislocated. It got knocked actually front on his wishbone instead of lying in the back under the shoulder blades. So they anesthetized him, and they put him, they popped it back in and wrapped the wing. 4 months later, it still wasn't moving properly. So they actually did some surgery, and they brought a human orthopedist to assist their veterinarian. But by August, they just could tell it wasn't going to get any better. So we started the paperwork. They contacted us, and we drove up to get him in November of 2003. So as you saw when we got live here, I'll show you. His wingspan's about 5.5 feet, but he just cannot raise this right wing all the way. You can see the one near my head here is just kind of, you know, it can't go up. So he can't do a proper upstroke and downstroke. He can't keep elevation when he flies. He can fly the length of his enclosure, which is about 35 feet. and then he has to land or go down to the ground. So it's hard to believe he was 3.5 when we got him, and he's now going to be 20 this spring. In the wild, eagles live an average of somewhere between 20 and 30 years, maybe 25. But with people, they can live to be 50 or 60 years old, potentially. I'm going to move forward just a little.
Great. So, and a lot of questions, one of the most common questions we get is what's the difference between a bald and a gold eagle?
Yeah, so they're both eagles, and they're about the same size, and they're both in the family Accipitridae, but they're in different genera. So bald eagles are a member of the sea eagle genus, and that's Haliaeetus. And there are about 8 species of sea eagles worldwide, and the feathers end here on their legs, and they all like to eat fish to some degree. Golden eagles are, remember, course, Mr. Getting Restless here, are a member of the genus Aquila or Aquila, which is Latin for eagle. They have, I'm going to give this to my friend for a second here, see if I can show you. They have feathers all the way down to the tops of their feet. They're also known as true or booted eagles, and they hunt a huge variety of mammals and reptiles, depending where in the world they live. The other big difference, of course, is bald eagles are found only in North America, basically Alaska down to the Rio Grande, whereas golden eagles are found worldwide in the Northern Hemisphere. They're found in Scotland, they're found in Eastern Europe, North Africa, Russia, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Japan. They have a very large distribution. Here in the U.S., most of the golden eagles are found west of the Mississippi River.
Great. And I'd like to remind the public, if you have any questions or comments, you can go ahead and type them on the screen, and we'll ask Ann for you. And what's more common right now in Colorado, bald or golden eagles? And why is the nested wildcat so important and significant?
Okay, so right now at the moment in Colorado, we still have a lot of bald eagles. As a matter of fact, you know, we're right across the interstate from Bar Lake State Park, and I am watching 3 bald eagles across I-76 right now. So is he, as you can probably see. We get about 1,500, maybe close to 2,000 bald eagles that migrate down to our state from Alaska and Canada. They're here from about November until March. And they're subadults. A lot of them are not yet breeding. And the ones that stick around now are not in a rush to get back up north to Alaska and Canada and breed. So now, right now, we have a ton of bald eagles. Throughout the rest of the year, the other, let's say, 6 or 7 months, we actually have more golden eagles in Colorado because we have better habitat. We're never going to have as many bald eagles as a state with a lot of water like Washington State, Alaska, or Minnesota. But here's the deal. See, golden eagles, for the most part, like to nest on cliffs. There are a few places where they will build nests in trees. In other parts of the world, even Denali National Park, Europe, Russia, goldens will nest in trees, but in the Rocky Mountain West, they really prefer cliffs. So they nest in cliffs, but they hunt prairie dogs and ground squirrels and cottontail rabbits and jackrabbits. So they have long distances that they need to travel to hunt, but then to spend the night. And the reason Wildcat Mountain and that nest is so critical is if you just look at Highlands Ranch historically, you know, going out east to Parker and going west towards Santa Fe and eventually, you know, the Front Range, there aren't a lot of cliffs and nesting places in the middle of good hunting habitat. So that's why this is just such an important habitat, not only for golden eagles, but historically prairie falcons and other species that like cliff nests.
Okay, so we got another question from Mimi, and she wants to know how heavy that eagle is that you're holding.
Okay, so right now he is 8 pounds. He's coming off of his winter weight. By the end of this month, he's probably going to drop down to about 7 pounds, 12 ounces. That seems to be his favorite weight for the bulk of the year. When it's 100 degrees out here in July and he really doesn't want to eat very much, he may drop down to 6 pounds, 14 ounces or so. They're, you know, homeothermic like we are, so they rely upon food energy to stay warm and maintain their weight. Let's do this. There we go.
Carly's asking, how many eggs do eagles lay at one time and in 1 year?
Hang on just a second. We're going to adjust here. Sorry, Kim, go back just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so it depends on the species. And this is another reason why, come on, buddy, the wildcat nest is so extraordinary. Golden eagles are one of those species that tend to lay 2 eggs, but they practice the Cain and Abel syndrome, which means often, not always, but often, the chick that hatches first is a little bit older, a little bit stronger, and kills the younger chick. So it is more common for golden eagles to only produce and successfully fledge or raise until the baby can leave the nest 1 young each year. And the fact that Wildcat Mountain in the backcountry has now had, hang on just 1 second, has now had 2 babies for 3 years in a row means we have experienced parents. There's a huge prey base, and everybody is following the rules and being really respectful of the eagles and giving them the space and time they need to breed. Bald eagles are a different story. Bald eagles routinely will fledge 2 or even 3 babies if, again, they have good parents and a good food supply.
Great. So, and that's an interesting point. The last 3 years, there have been 6 fledglings, twins each year. And before that, the previous 6 years, there were only 2 successful nests and two fledglings. Right. Do you have any insight as to why those previous nests failed and how often that happens?
We obviously, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, as have, the backcountry volunteers like Libby, who monitors the nest. Our weather here in Colorado in the spring is rough. We see this in Wyoming as well. I mean, it snowed here May 21st last year. We can get, ice storms and these dank squalls, a little bit of what happened yesterday, where the eggs might just get cold, or, a deep snow will kill prey for a bit, and there may not be just enough available for mom and dad to catch initially while the egg is incubating, and it's about 42 days with golden eagles. Interesting, goldens are about 42 days, but bald eagles, the incubation period is 35 days. You never know if the eggs get too cold or there's an accident in the nest, the eggs get jostled or break, they're not going to hatch. Even if the babies do hatch, the young can get cold, which is another reason why post-hatching it's so critical that mom and dad aren't disturbed, so they can have one parent on the nest, keeping the baby warm and keeping them safe from ravens. The first couple weeks of a young golden eagle's life, they are very vulnerable to predation by ravens and great horned owls.
Great. Another question from Brian is, how fast can golden eagles fly?
Okay. So if they are doing courtship rituals, so if dad is flying around in the sky and doing these great climbs and these dives and all this flamboyant flying and trying to impress mom, he could get going up to 200 miles an hour for a brief few seconds. Also, too, I can imagine if the parents were trying to chase away an intruding eagle or a threat to the nest. Can you guys hear that? Sorry, that was our female golden eagle, and I think she's calling. We have a couple of pelicans over the muse right now. And nope, there's actually 2 eagles over me right now. It's crazy out here. So up to 200 miles an hour regularly, if they're catching rabbits on the ground, like chasing a jackrabbit through the Wyoming sagebrush, 40, 50 miles an hour easily. They're not going to go as fast as long as a falcon because they don't have the very long pointed wings and aerodynamic shape, but they're very, very strong flyers.
Great. So the next question from Lori is, do eagles mate for life?
They do, but they practice serial monogamy, so to speak. So if one mate dies, the other remaining mate will attempt to find a new partner.
Okay. And what do you think are eagles, what their key prey source is in the backcountry?
Absolutely what you said before, cottontail rabbits. And again, I saw a few prairie dog remnants in there. In the backcountry specifically, I would say those are your primary sources. I wouldn't put it past them to grab a turkey if they could, especially a young one. In Colorado, they will hunt bull snakes. Depending on how far they go, too. If they leave the backcountry and really go, down towards Parker or Kiowa or Elizabeth, there are jackrabbits there. And golden eagles and jackrabbits were just made for each other because jackrabbits are large, 6, 7, 8 pounds, the black-tailed jackrabbit. And that's a great food source, too. But an eagle would not be able to pick up a 7-pound jackrabbit and fly all the way back to the nest. They'd have to eat a portion of it and then bring a leg.
Great. So Avery's asking, how long do the eagles live?
So average wild lifespan is 20 to 30 years, give or take. With people, they have been known to reach 50 or 60. Oh, by the way, since he settled down for a second, I'm going to hand this to my friend. They're called the golden eagles because of these beautiful feathers right here. It's a little bit hard to see with the camera. But yeah, all age groups have those feathers. And here in Colorado, our sun is so bright that when our eagles sit out in the sun, they fade to these beautiful, beautiful golden, blotchy, light brown, blonde, dark brown colors. The other thing, too, is you might be able to see for a minute that his eyes are kind of yellowish. That's just because he is an older bird. When the young leave the nest each year, our wildcat babies, their eyes are a deep brown color. And that starts to change about the time they're 5, 6, 7 years old.
Okay. Another question for Mimi is, and maybe talk more about their vision, but do eagles see in color or black and white?
They see in color. All birds see in color. And some aquatic birds like penguins and cormorants also see in different shades that more, land birds do not. With eagle and other raptor vision, it's not like looking through a telescopic lens. It's like, think of the old monitors, 256 color versus 4K HD high definition. Their ability to resolve shapes and have a clear image at a very great distance, and their ability to detect motion is much greater than ours. A lot of people don't appreciate the motion thing. That's why you see hawks and eagles, a lot of raptors just sitting a lot. They're watching for stuff, and they can see the slightest movement in a grass or, a rabbit come out of its burrow half a mile away, a brown rabbit on brown ground that you and I just don't detect. That's what makes them such great hunters.
Nice. Mimi also wants to know, how far can he rotate his head?
180 degrees from straight in front to straight behind.
Okay. And then the next question is, do you have an estimate of how many Goldens are in Colorado?
Ooh, that figure I do not have. There are birds that migrate through, and then there are resident breeding pairs. I can tell you that in North America, conservative estimates are about 21,000 birds, but it fluctuates every year. A lot of it has to do with drought, especially in the West. They are not considered a species at risk, for sure.
Great. Next question is from Lori. How often do they eat or need to eat?
So in the wild, a wild eagle might only make a kill every 3 or 4 days, and then they gorge themselves. And that's kind of what he was doing. Another big difference between bald and golden eagles is that golden eagles only scavenge really if they are desperate at the end of winter and in rough places like, Mongolia and Wyoming and Colorado or Montana. Whereas bald eagles will scavenge their entire lives. They always prefer to scavenge a meal or kick another raptor off of something dead than to kill themselves. So when he found that dead white-tailed deer, he was doing what a smart bird would do to survive a Montana winter, and he was eating as much as possible. And that actually kind of led to his injury because the day hunting raptors, like eagles and hawks, they have a sac here that actually rests right on their wishbone. It's called a crop. And that's where all the food goes first. All the food does not go right. Oh, he's going to rouse. That actually means he's relaxed. All the food does not go all the way down to their first stomach. It's kind of like shoving all the suitcases to the rear of the plane. It doesn't balance out well for flight. The crop balances this out. He had 12 ounces of deer meat in his crop. They could see it on x-ray. So he just literally was too full to get off the ground. With us, we feed him about 10 to 12 ounces every single day. He gets way more to eat with us than he ever would, in the wild.
These two questions are kind of related. Where do the eagles go after they fly from the nest? And then how large of a territory do they cover?
That is the big mystery. When you say the eagles, are you talking the fledged young from that year, or are you talking about mom and dad? Because as far as I can tell, our wildcat pair, they will kind of leave the nest once the babies leave and, take a vacation once the kids are out of the house, but they don't go terribly far. They do sort of hang around Wildcat Mountain as their home territory. Would you agree with that?
The young or the parents?
The parents.
Yeah. It kind of leads us into I was going to talk about the timing of the nests and everything.
Sure.
And, we typically notice mom incubating on the nest either late February or beginning of March. The earliest date was actually this year, and it was February 18th.
Right.
So it's a 45-day incubation. So we're right at that 45-day mark right now. So we're kind of starting to watch for some little white heads to start poking up. But and then they fledge typically mid-July, but they definitely hang around the nest after they fledge all the way through August. Last year, we noticed the young sticking around all the way through September. We saw them quite often around the nest, even though they're pretty mobile. And we noticed them miles away from the nest as well, out in the other parts of the backcountry. But typically, and I'm not sure if it's just my untrained eye, but we don't see the parents. Dad seems to disappear first, and then mom eventually disappears, and we really don't see them until December, January, when they start their courtship over. But where they go is kind of anyone's guess and how far they go. So maybe you can speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I'm not certain. I do know that some studies in Wyoming indicate that fledged young will stick around the nest or be dependent on their parents for up to 90 days. A lot of times, to encourage their independence and dispersal, mom and dad will in fact leave. And now you're coming into the end of September timeframe, where the urge to migrate and wander is very high. And one of the more recent studies I've seen actually has attempted to track where young Goldens from Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado go and how far south they go into New Mexico or Texas. And if you look at the maps, there's a lot of wandering. They'll go Wyoming, Colorado, and they'll go down to Texas, New Mexico. They'll loop and come back up. They're very, very migratory at that point. And again, they scavenge. They look for other eagles that they might be able to buddy up to. Whoa, there we go. I know in Wyoming in the fall, I have seen first year birds. So these are birds with the big white band across the base of the tail and the white patches in the wings. Follow and watch an older adult eagle that is likely not their parent, waiting for that eagle to make a kill. So then they can come in and grab some leftovers. And this goes back to banding. It's one of the reasons why being able to band a bird potentially, or even put satellite telemetry on them, is just so useful, because where these eagles go and what habitated areas wind up being critical food sources in territories where they can survive a winter, these are all important things to know.
Great.
Oh, the territory. You had asked how large a territory. Parents can have 100 square miles, get nesting area somewhere within that.
One of the things I think is really fascinating is once they start incubating, the female is on that nest for almost 45 days straight. She rarely leaves. So can you talk about the male-female roles in the nesting and feeding on the young and all that?
Absolutely. Dad is at this point the main provider, and this is the case in many raptor species, bald eagles, as well. Um, he's got to be able to feed himself, feed mom, and this also goes to some of the theories why in raptors the females are larger, since in those early incubation and nesting and baby periods right after the young hatch, mom has got to be able to defend the nest, the babies, against whomever comes in. So it makes sense that the parent that is at the nest the most is the one that is the largest. And all birds pretty much develop a brood patch, which is kind of between their legs towards their tail. And what it is you can't see it, but the down feathers right against their skin disappear. They're still covered by the panel or black feathers, but the skin is bare. So they can literally press this bare skin right on the egg and keep it warm with their body temperature. And they just sit there, they still bathe periodically if they can when they get off the nest to maintain the waterproofing of their feathers, because they got to sit there in rain, snow, sleet, whatever it is, to keep the eggs warm.
I think so. One more question. It looks like how big do eagles get, and which one's bigger, male or female?
So the females are larger, and I'm assuming we're talking about golden eagles here.
Yes.
Okay. So in our country, really, the largest average large size for a female golden is going to be maybe at the most 14 pounds with a almost 8-foot wingspan. In some portions of Asia and Russia, the golden eagles there are larger. The biggest golden eagle I ever saw in this country was a female from Montana, and she was 15 pounds. We got her from the San Francisco Zoo back when I got my start in California, and we needed to use a bathroom scale to weigh her. And she had an 8-foot wingspan, but that is not typical for an American or Western U.S. golden eagle. And males between 6 and 8 pounds, 5.5 to 6.5 foot wingspan. On average, golden eagles and bald eagles are the same size, but there are certain populations where that can vary slightly.
Okay. What animals are predators to golden eagles?
Well, when they're in the nest, ravens, great horned owls, really those are the main two. If an eagle is on the ground trying to feed on something, potentially in areas like the Yellowstone ecosystem, I can see that other eagles might attack a young one. Potentially a badger could injure an eagle if they were squabbling over something dead on the ground. But that's not regular predation. That's just what scenario could another carnivore injure an eagle. Really, their predators are humans, and then just the ravens and great horned owls when they're young in the nest.
Great. I think we're about to wrap it up. If there are any other questions, go ahead and fire them at us. But Ann, do you have anything to sum up?
No, I think we've covered golden certainly very, very well. There are still tons of bald eagles flying around. I know everybody is kind of stuck inside right now and being encouraged not to get too close to other folks. Kids are trying to learn at home. I know you guys have a lot of things that you're doing online for backcountry, and our website, raptoreducationfoundation.org, right on our homepage, we've got a couple of links, visit in place and color in place, materials for parents, fun videos that folks can check out. And we're going to be putting some more on that platform as well. We're not going to be able to have our spring open house here in a few weeks, which is a huge disappointment, but we're hoping that folks will be able to come check us out in Brighton and, continue making reservations to visit once this is all over and we get some good summer weather.
Great. Thank you very much, Ann, for being with us and doing this with us today. We appreciate it. Like Ann said, look them up on Facebook, Raptor Education Foundation, and of course our Facebook page here. Stay tuned to that. Throughout this lockdown, we're going to try and do more and more online education. That'll be interesting for the kids and adults as well. So yeah, use both of us as a resource to help spend some time with your kids and some worthwhile education, hopefully.
And I just want to give another shout out to you, Mark, and everybody in the Highlands Ranch Community Association. I mean, really, the one thing I did not say is golden eagles are not really tolerant of human presence. Bald eagles will nest almost anywhere. They hunt in City Park, they're in Wash Park, they don't care. Bald eagles don't mind people. Goldens are sensitive. The fact that you have this magnificent nest right in Highlands Ranch and is doing so well really speaks to how wonderful your citizens are, paying attention to the rules and being respectful. So keep up the good work, Highlands Ranch.
Thank you, Ann. We appreciate everybody, and thank you for tuning in, and until next time.
Stay safe, guys. Stay healthy. Have a good day.